You are looking at a river. It does not look like one. There is no channel, no bank, no current you can see, no sound of moving water at all. There is only grass, flat to the horizon in every direction under an enormous sky. But the water beneath that grass is moving southward about half a mile a day in a sheet 60 miles wide and only inches deep. It is one of the strangest rivers on Earth, and almost nobody recognizes it as one. This is the Pa-hay-okee Overlook, in the heart of Everglades National Park, in southern Florida, about 13 miles in from the homestead entrance. The trail is tiny, a boardwalk loop of less than 2/10 of a mile with a low observation tower at the end of it. It is probably the shortest trail in the park. It is also the one that shows you what the Everglades actually are. The boardwalk lifts you up. That is its entire purpose. 15 feet of elevation in a landscape with essentially none, and suddenly the sawgrass stops being a wall in front of your face and becomes a plain. It goes on and on. Scattered across it are darker patches, tree islands, hardwood hammocks standing on slight rises in the rock. And that is the view. Grass, water, sky, and a few islands of trees. Pa-hay-okee. The Park Service says simply that the native people who lived here named it and that it translates as grassy waters. Beyond that, be careful. Some sources call it Seminole, some call it Miccosukee, the Muskogean language spoken by the Miccosukee and by many Seminoles, and those labels overlap rather than compete. The Park Service itself does not pin it to one nation. What everyone agrees on is the meaning, grassy waters, which is exactly, precisely, what is in front of us. The English name is Stranger. A British surveyor, John Gerard de Brom, mapped this coast in the 1770s and called the interior the River Glades. The word Everglades first turns up on a map around 1823, and it was still being written as two words, Everglades, in the 1850s. A glade is an old word for a grassy open place. Ever, as in endless. Endless grassy openness. As place names go, that is an unusually honest piece of description. And yet for most of American history this was called a swamp. A swamp is stagnant. A swamp is a problem. A swamp is something you drain and improve and turn into farmland, and that is precisely what was done to it. The single most important idea anyone ever had about this landscape is the idea that it is not a swamp at all. It is a river, very wide, very shallow, very slow, but a river flowing. The person who put that idea into the language was Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. Her book, The Everglades, River of Grass, was published on the 6th of November, 1947, 1 month before the national park was dedicated. It has sold more than 500,000 copies. Its opening argument is simply that everyone has been wrong about what this place is, and its title is the 4-word summary that changed how a country saw a landscape. She did not invent it out of the air. She spent years researching, and she worked with a hydrologist from the Geological Survey named Gerald Parker, whose science established that this really is a flowing system rather than a stagnant one. The story that has come down, and it is secondhand so treated as such, is that she asked him directly whether she could get away with calling it a river of grass. His work said she could. So here is the river. Historically, the water gathered in the Kissimmee chain of lakes in central Florida spilled into Lake Okeechobee, and when the lake overtopped its southern rim, it did not cut a channel. It simply spread. It moved south as a single continuous sheet of shallow water, roughly 60 miles wide, running 100 miles down the peninsula to the mangroves in Florida Bay. No banks, no bed, just a moving film of water across a limestone floor. And the reason it goes so slowly is the reason it is so wide. The land drops by about 2 inches per mile. 2 inches. That is the gradient of the entire system from Lake Okeechobee down to the sea. There is nothing to concentrate the water, nothing to speed it up, no valley to hold it. So it spreads out sideways and creeps at something like half a mile a day, and a drop of water can take most of a year to cross. Which means you can stand here and stare at this water and never once see it move. It is moving. The whole sheet is sliding south beneath the grass, but at a pace far below what the human eye can register. The wind moving the grass tops is far more visible than the river underneath them. It is the only large river in the world you have to be told about before you can perceive it. The heart of the old system was Lake Okeechobee. Big water in the language from the same root that gives us the Okie and Pa-hay-okee. It is enormous and, characteristically for this state, extremely shallow. Rain fell across central Florida, the Kissimmee gathered it, the lake held it, and in the wet season the lake simply brimmed over its low southern edge and began the sheet flow. Everything downstream depended on that overflow. Now look at what fills it. Sawgrass. It covers something like 2/3 of the remaining Everglades, growing in immense unbroken stands, 6 to 10 feet of blade, pale green fading to gold. From this platform it reads as a single texture, like a wheat field the size of a county. That impression of uniformity is the reason people once looked at this and saw wasteland, and it is completely wrong. First, a correction that matters. Sawgrass is not a grass. It is a sedge of the family Cyperaceae, a distinct lineage from the true grasses. Its scientific name is Cladium jamescens, and it is very old and very well adapted, tolerating flooding for 9 months of the year, growing where almost nothing else can, and dominating this system so completely that it has essentially defined what the Everglades look like. And second, the name is not decorative. The leaf edges carry fine, hard, backward-pointing teeth, and there are teeth along the underside of the midrib as well. Run a hand along one carelessly, and it will open your skin. Early surveyors, Soldiers and hunters who tried to cross this country on foot described the sawgrass as one of the worst things about it. It is a plain that fights back. Now look down at the water itself, and at the soft gray-brown mat suspended in it, coating the stems, floating in sheets. That is periphyton, and it is the most important thing here that nobody photographs. It is a living assemblage of algae, cyanobacteria, tiny invertebrates, and detritus, with more than 700 kinds of algae identified in it. It looks like sludge. It is the foundation of the entire Everglades. Periphyton accounts for more than half of all the primary production in this system. More than half. It is what the invertebrates and the small fish eat, and the small fish are what the bass and the gar and the wading birds and the alligators eat. Every heron out there, every alligator, is standing on a food chain whose bottom rung is that unglamorous gray mat. It also pumps oxygen into the water. And it is a warning system. The Everglades are naturally starved of phosphorus. When phosphorus levels rise above roughly 10 parts per billion, which is a fantastically small amount, the calcium-crusted native mat begins to break down. The community shifts, and cattail moves in and takes over from sawgrass, and in the worst enriched areas, the periphyton effectively disappears. Fertilizer runoff from the farmland upstream can be read precisely in the algae. Beneath all of it is rock, limestone, laid down when this was warm, shallow sea, and porous enough that water passes through it. It is what holds the whole plate of the peninsula flat, and its subtle bumps and hollows decide where a tree island sits and where the water runs. It is also, in the same breath, the top of the Biscayne Aquifer, which is where Miami's drinking water comes from. The Everglades as a functioning wetland are young. The rock is far older, but the peat that the sawgrass grows in only began accumulating in earnest around 5,000 years ago, when sea levels and rainfall settled into the pattern that made the sheet flow possible. Peat builds at something like a foot every 225 years, which tells you how easy it is to lose. Drain it, and it oxidizes and burns away. The engine is the year itself. The wet season runs roughly May to October, and the water rises and the sheet flows and the fish spread out across 100 miles of flooded grass. Then the rain stops and the water withdraws, and the fish are squeezed into fewer and fewer places, and by the end of the dry season, the whole vast system has concentrated itself into a scattering of pools. We are here in January, watching that concentration happen. Some of those pools are dug. Alligators excavate depressions in the marl and the soft rock, and in the dry season those holes hold the last standing water for miles. Fish, turtles, snails, crayfish, and frogs crowd into them at extraordinary densities. Every other animal in the neighborhood comes to drink and to feed. The alligator is not merely a predator here. It is a public utility, and half the dry season depends on it. And that is why the wading birds nest when they do. Wood storks, white ibis, great egrets, roseate spoonbills. They time their breeding to the dry down because they need their prey compressed into small, shallow, catchable pools. A wood stork hunts by touch, feeling for fish with an open bill. If the water does not fall on schedule, the fish never concentrate and the chicks do not get fed. The whole nesting season is keyed to the falling water. People have lived in this landscape for thousands of years. The Calusa held the southwest coast for centuries, and the Tequesta of the Biscayne Bay side, and they left shell mounds and shell works that are still in the park. Both societies were destroyed by European disease, slave raiding, and war, and by the middle of the 18th century they were effectively gone. What followed was not their continuation, but something new. The Seminole and the Miccosukee are here now, in the present tense. They came south under pressure in the 18th and 19th centuries, and during the three Seminole Wars, a few hundred people refused removal and went deep into this country, where the army could not follow. No treaty of surrender was ever signed. The Seminole tribe of Florida and the Miccosukee tribe of Indians of Florida are sovereign nations today, and Miccosukee families live along the Tamiami Trail, just north of where we stand. Now the other story, the one that runs underneath everything. In 1881, a Philadelphia industrialist named Hamilton Diston bought 4 million acres of Florida for $1 million. The New York Times called it the largest land purchase ever made by an individual, 4 million acres, a quarter apiece, and his intention was not to keep it as it was. His intention was to drain it, because drained land could be sold. Then in 1904, Napoleon Bonaparte Broward ran for governor of Florida, and the centerpiece of his campaign was a promise to drain the Everglades. The phrase attached to him, and it is quoted everywhere though hard to trace to a primary source, is that he would drain that abominable pestilence-ridden swamp. He won. In 1907, he created the Everglades Drainage District, and the state of Florida formally set about destroying this river. The method was canals, straight cuts driven from Lake Okeechobee east to the Atlantic so that the water that used to spill south across the glades would instead run sideways and be dumped into the sea. The Miami Canal, the North New River, the Hillsborough, the West Palm Beach, the St. Lucie, 5 great trenches opened through the first quarter of the 20th century, cutting the head off the river. It went wrong in the most terrible way. Farmers moved onto the drained black soil at the lake's edge, protected by a low dike of piled muck. On the 16th of September 1928, a hurricane pushed the lake out of its bed and over the dike, and the water went through the farm towns in the dark. The Red Cross counted about 1,770 dead. Other estimates run well past 3,000. Most of the dead were black migrant farm workers. answer to that catastrophe was a bigger wall, the Herbert Hoover Dike, roughly 66 miles of earth around the southern rim of Lake Okeechobee, some 34 feet high, authorized in 1930 and finished in the later 30s. It saved the towns. It also ended permanently the natural overflow of the lake into the Everglades. From that point on, the river had no source. Every drop that reaches this grass now arrives because somebody opened a gate. And then in 1928, they finished the Tamiami Trail. It is a road running east to west across the peninsula between Tampa and Miami. Look at the geometry. The water moves north to south. The road runs east to west on a raised embankment straight across the flow. It is functionally a dam 100 miles long, and it has been strangling the water supply to the southern Everglades for the better part of a century. Then in 1948, Congress authorized the Central and Southern Florida Project, and the plumbing became total. Over the following decades, roughly 1,000 miles and more of canals and levees were built, with gates and spillways and pump stations, and the Everglades agricultural area was carved out of the north, some 470,000 acres, which is around a quarter of the original wetland, planted mainly in sugar cane. Add it all up and the number is brutal. About half of the original Everglades is gone, converted to farmland and city. Half. And what remains is not simply a smaller version of the original. It is a plumbed, gated, pumped remnant, receiving water on a schedule set by engineers, at the wrong time of year in the wrong quantity, and carrying phosphorus it was never adapted to. The view from this boardwalk is a survivor. The park exists because of a landscape architect named Ernest Coe, who campaigned for it obsessively through the 20s and 30s, and who is called the father of the Everglades for good reason. Congress authorized the park on the 30th of May, 1934, on the condition that no federal money be spent on it for 5 years. It took another 13 years to assemble the land. President Truman dedicated it on the 6th of December, 1947. And now, at enormous expense, the country is trying to undo it. In 2000, Congress authorized the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, 60-odd projects, several decades, originally costed at around $8 billion and now far more. It is the largest ecosystem restoration effort ever attempted anywhere. Its central purpose is disarmingly simple. Get the water flowing south again, at the right time, in the right amount, clean. Part of that is literally lifting the road. A 1-mile bridge was completed on the Tamiami Trail in 2013, and further bridging opened in 2019, letting water pass underneath instead of piling up against the embankment. It is slow, and it is contested, and it is nothing like finished. But the idea behind it is exactly right, and it is the direct descendant of the argument Marjory Stoneman Douglas made in 1947. Do not leave here comfortable. This park is a World Heritage Site, and it sits on the World Heritage List of sites in danger, where it has spent most of the last 3 decades, and where the United States itself asked to have it placed in 2010 because the water was not being fixed fast enough. Some indicators are improving. The system is still, plainly, in trouble. So look once more before we go down. Grass to the horizon, water underneath it, moving so slowly you will never see it. A river that had to be argued into existence before anyone would defend it. It is still here, and it is still flowing, and half of it is still ours to lose. Thank you for watching. Follow for more trails of the world.